This is Jack White for the Capital District Growth Team with your Monday morning message for July 6, 2009. This is the third in a series of 5 monthly messages that I've been recording about how to make our clubs better and stronger. I firmly believe, and data will back this up, that weak clubs are at the core of Kiwanis' membership problems. People hesitate to join weak clubs, and those who do join are less likely to stay. It's that simple. Today I want to discuss an issue that I think is at the heart of our weak club problem. The fact that our presidents, before they take office, are not properly trained to lead their clubs. What do I mean? Let's start with the documented fact that less than half of the incoming club presidents in the Capital District get any training for their jobs. And I mean any training. Stated otherwise, more than half of our presidents know only what they have observed in their own clubs when they are put in charge. And what types of clubs are most likely to have untrained presidents? You guessed it, the weakest ones. So, those presidents, having no knowledge of the best practices, are likely to continue doing the very things that cause their clubs to become weak in the first place. It's a vicious cycle that we need to break. But there is more. The training we offer to presidents-elect, in my opinion, is not the best that we can do. Now, this is no criticism of our district's dedicated trainers. Rather, it is a system which leaves the planning and scheduling to our lieutenant governors. And this in turn means that the quality and quantity of our training will vary from division to division. I'm now in line to be president of my Kiwanis Club next year. And what training has been offered me? A single session with a single trainer last January. That was it. I am very glad that I was able to learn the job otherwise. And while that training session was intended for all 10 clubs of our division, I think 4 of them showed up. And you know that is pathetic. What am I suggesting? Let me answer that question in reverse order. First, I believe the training of our future club presidents should be a district function. That's how we train our district trustees and our lieutenant governors. And if I may say so, the people who lead our clubs have a lot more to do with the success or failure of Kiwanis than either of those other groups, and I have served in both of them. Because of our district size, this training probably should be done by regions or maybe areas of 2 regions each. Either way, the best people we can find should do this training, and we should use technology to be sure that every president-elect gets to learn from the top people. Moreover, training for presidents-elect should be a full 8 or 10 hours with multiple instructors and all the modern techniques that we can muster. When you consider travel times, having 8 or 10 hours of instruction will probably mean that you would have an opening afternoon and evening session, stay overnight, and then a morning session the next day. But this would let us really get into the nuts and bolts of running a club, something that my training frankly didn't do. And for clubs we think are at risk, teach them how to reinvent themselves so they can remain viable. At least part of this training should be divided so that generally healthy clubs and those that are struggling are not thrown together at every session. In other words, tailor some of the sessions for the types of clubs that are being trained there. This would be a radical change from the past, but it should pay immense results. All of this has a money tab to it. It costs us, and who should pay for it? Well, and I'm talking about the actual training sessions for the presidents-elect and the travel to get the incoming presidents there, and then the overnight stays and meals. I say that the clubs should do that for their own presidents-elect. The few $100s this would cost should be built into the budget of every club in the Capital District, and I frankly can't think of a better expenditure that they could make. And all of this leads to my final point. If we provide this fine training, how do we get our presidents-elect to partake of it? To answer this, I suggest we should look to our Rotary friends, who for years have had mandatory training for their own presidents-elect. And when I say mandatory, I mean it. A good friend of mine is a former district trainer in Rotary. That's right. They do all of their training at the district level. This man tells me that nobody can take office as the president of a Rotary Club unless he or she has attended a district-run overnight training session. And if for any reason that incoming president cannot attend the training in his own district, he must attend the session in a neighboring district. They're all pretty much the same. And again, the penalty in Rotary for not being trained is that you cannot take office as president. Is Rotary stronger for this? Well, they have more clubs and more members than we do, and by substantial margins. Moreover, their clubs now average about 50 members, while ours are down to about 35. I suggest there's a lesson here. Yet, whenever I mention this to our Kiwanis leaders, the response is almost always the same. They say, our people just won't do that. Well, how do we know until we've tried? And with our club shrinking in size and numbers, can we afford to do less? Again, we are allowing a vicious cycle to sap the strength of this organization. We allow weak clubs to be run by untrained leaders, thereby perpetuating the weaknesses that cause so many of them to fail. This is a harsh indictment, but after 6 years of fairly hard work trying to get our district back on a growth path, I am convinced of two things. First, we need more better training for our club presidents. It should be done at the district level. And second, for that training to be effective, it must be mandatory. That's your Monday morning message for July 6th. For the Capital District Growth Team, this is Jack White saying, thank you for listening.